staying with us here on 702. Remember, at 11 o'clock, we're going to do our relationship and sex feature. Today, we're talking about celibacy. Do you practice celibacy? How do you practice celibacy effectively? And what are the benefits? One, as an individual, when you practice celibacy, but also when you're a couple. Because as a couple, you can decide. One of you can decide, let's practice celibacy, perhaps to improve your emotional connection, whatever your goal is. What benefit have you seen from practicing celibacy? That's what's coming up at 11 o'clock.
The State of the Nation address made simple.
SONA in 60 minutes with Clement Manyathela on 702. Let's walk the talk.
All right, so on Across the Desk this morning, I am hosting EWN Political Editor Tshidi Madia, EWN Parliamentary reporter Lindsay, Dentlinger, and the Midday Report host Mandy, Wiener. We do this really every time after the State of the Nation address, where we take some time to look at some key takeouts from last night's State of the Nation address. So we dissect, we analyze what came out, what were the missed opportunities, what worked, what didn't work, and why does it matter. I want you to join this conversation. So if you've got your own thoughts of what the president said, or what it meant, you can give us a call on 011-883-0702. Or maybe you want to ask my guests some questions. The WhatsApp line is also 072-702-1702. If you want to watch this conversation, you can do so. Go to primemediaplus.com or go to Prime Media Plus app. There's Mandy and Tshidi and Lindsay waving at the cameras right now. So you can watch this live as we do it in studio. Go to Facebook, on our social media platforms. You'll see the link that takes you to this conversation. Tshidi Madia, welcome.
Good morning.
Are you settled?
Good morning, Clement. Good morning to your listeners. Lindsay, Mandy, good morning, everybody.
Yeah.
You know, maybe it's the SONA, Mandy. Maybe I'm exhausted because we had such detailed SONA.
Yeah.
Good morning, everyone. Yes.
Mandy Wiener, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Are you feeling rested? You and I finished our broadcast.
I was walking around an engine at midnight last night holding my high heels in my hand and eating steers. So...
Can I tell you, everyone was speaking about Mandy's high heels.
Yeah,
even this morning, someone was like, you saw Mandy Wiener was wearing high heels. And I was like...
Yeah, we
I wear high heels all the time.
We finished our broadcast at 10 p.m. And as soon as we said bye-bye, I said to Mandy, bye. And I literally left.
Sorry, for the record, Clement Uber arrived 3 minutes before the end
I
of the
said bye-bye.
broadcast.
Can I just very quickly, I'm now calling you out.
Yeah.
So I walked around looking for Clement the whole of last night. And I was like, has anyone seen Clement? He was finishing off his broadcast. I'm waiting for Clement. And someone's like, see, Clement left long time ago. Like he wrapped up and he just disappeared.
I was tired. Lindsay Dentlinger, thank you for joining us.
Thanks, Clement.
Yeah, did you also stay up until 10?
Well, I was sitting in the studio while it was being ripped apart and thinking, what am I going to write? Because I feel like a hypocrite telling South Africans that load shedding's coming to an end, and then, I get home, there's no power. So.
Oh, and the president said what?
And the
end of load shedding is within reach.
It's within reach.
Whatever
there's light
that
at the end
means.
of the tunnel. So.
And you know that ESCOM put out an alert and ramped us up to stage 3 at the end of the speech.
Yes.
And then this morning it went to stage 4. And yeah, everyone's
But
like,
better days ahead of us, they say.
Okay, let's start first with, for the first time in a number of years, we didn't have red in Parliament yesterday. And for the first time in a number of years, the president started talking and there was no point of order that was raised. That's quite a significant moment in so many ways, Tshidi Madia, no?
Yeah, it was an interesting one for me because I had to keep going back to people saying, oh my God, there were no theatrics this time around. The rules have been implemented and the SONA started and he just got into the speech and we got underway. I remember seeing a tweet, funny enough, during that period from Mandy about, I think he said how refreshing it is just to get on with the business of the day. It is different and I think it's what we used to be at some point before the EFF made their way to Parliament back in 2014. It'll be interesting to see what happens at the next SONA. I do think we deserve, though, to be made to deal with the contents of the speech and not the theatre around the delivery of the speech.
Some people, Mandy, felt, what a boring SONA this year, because even people who used to criticize the EFF for their theatrics this time around were like, it's different. There was didn't have that thing. What did you think?
Well, look, I think there is a place for the EFF and the protestations in Parliament, particularly around Jacob Zuma and Pay Back the Money. I think that they needed to do what they were doing. I think it became a bit redundant and a bit repetitive. So that's why I thought it was refreshing to just get on with it and let's hear the president and focus on the content of the speech. I must say, I thought the EFF would do something last night.
I believed so too.
I don't know, and I don't think
I
they're
don't
going to
know
land
what.
in a helicopter and disrupt.
Or plant a bomb.
Yeah,
no,
no.
Guys, they
not
have a
that.
manifesto. I did not think any of that. I was surprised
Maybe a
that.
protest
No, I
outside.
didn't expect
Yeah, I thought
that.
they would
They
be
have a
a poster
manifesto.
or something novel. I thought they would come up with something.
They're preparing for the weekend. So for me, I mean, I've spoken to them and I said, oh yes, we're all going to Parliament. They're like, well, we are not. Even while they were having it out in court and Malema was saying to journalists that the AFF is not Malema, those who can go should go, I knew that they wouldn't go. I didn't expect anything from them.
Why then, Lindsay? Because Julius Malema said, I am not the EFF, Floyd is not the EFF. Even though there's 6 of us who have been sanctioned and we're not going to attend, the EFF MPs who understand the mandate of their constituency and they will represent us. And then at the last minute, all of them pull out.
Yeah, it was bizarre. Like Mandy, I really did think that they would still, I mean, there was still a contingent of over 30 of them who could attend and still, make their voices heard. I thought maybe they would do, that they always have that thing about, the women are being badly treated in Parliament if they get removed. And I thought maybe they will try some kind of protest action that involves, the women. I think you were speaking to the chairperson, Veronica Mente, yesterday. And I thought, maybe, Mandy was, would take something forward. But yeah, I think the president also, I think he started his speech looking a bit nervous. And then he was completely relaxed. And of course, the presiding officers, as Tshidi was saying, it's about allowing people to listen to the speech. And the presiding officers saying, well, these rules are not meant to stifle the debate, are not meant to stop the EFF from saying what they want to say. They have 2 days to say what they want to say in the coming week. This is not the end of the State of the Nation address. It's the start, really. And, often they sit until 8 o'clock at night debating, and you can have it out with the president, just not on that night.
But they said that they're going to boycott all SONA activities. Does that include the debate then as well, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, what are you debating when you were not part of the SONA?
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, that would be ridiculous of them to want to come and you want to debate. Debate what? You were not there. Didn't swallow. Has anybody found her or him
Can
or
I
them?
tell you, we've known Tinswalo for far too long. If I say to you, Tandy, yes, do you remember the
NDP.
illustrations of her walking from the village? So we've seen Tinswalo under maybe her first name, if you may. We've been here before. But I think what was lacking for me, and it's something I keep going back and forth, is that when she was Tandy, right? Because Tinswalo is Tandy 2.0, there were actual timelines about certain things that haven't come to fruition. If you think about the NDP, and I think maybe Lindsay can chart it slightly better. I look at you because you're from Parliament. Can chart it slightly better. There were deadlines. There's a 2030 timeline
We missed
towards
our deadline
something.
last year.
So I'd expect a little bit more. Tinswalo, by the way, we can relate to her, particularly when I look in the room and I look at someone like you and I, where we, with our backgrounds and what our parents come from, so I do recognize that. But I think what was lacking for me with Tinswalo is we don't know what's happening with her right now. Of course, her life is better than what it would have been 30 years ago. But she was also hit by stage 3 load shedding last night.
She probably didn't even watch the speech.
So actually, I said that to Jose Ramaphosa last night, the Minister of Electricity. I said Tinswalo was load shed last night. Tinswalo couldn't watch the speech. And he responded to that. Look, from a narrative storytelling point of view, Tinswalo is an excellent device.
Excellent.
And kudos to the speechwriter,
Yeah,
because
they killed it there.
so that is excellent in terms of how do you deliver that narrative? How do you make South Africans understand the successes of the ANC government? And to use a narrative device like that is very, very effective. But what it does is it also completely opens the door for criticism from opposition parties, and that's what they're hooked onto.
And just a day earlier, I mean, as Tshidi is saying, you can't deny that there are thousands of Tinswalos. But just on Wednesday, the SIU told Parliament Standing Committee on Public Account that at least 40,000 students have erroneously didn't qualify for student funding and received it. It's worth 50 million rand. The SIU have interviewed 4,000 parents to get the money back. So how many other Tinswalos could there have been if people didn't defraud the system? So it's the flip side of the coin. I mean, just the universities are holding on to almost 700 million rand in money that they should not have received for how many Tsenswalos that could have been in university with that money. And those are the parts of, when you're listing the successes, you're not seeing how many more, because as Tshidi saying, we're not measuring it against anything. So how many more Tsenswalos are there out there who deserved money to go to university but didn't get it because people are defrauding the system?
I thought Trollip spoke to you, Mandy, Wiener, last night, and I thought he had such a brilliant response to this Tsenswalo narrative. And he said to Mandy, well, let me tell you about Tsenswalo in the Eastern Cape. I mean, he's from Nelson Mandela Bay. And he said that Tsenswalo I know in the Eastern Cape, this is their reality. And he said, you know what I'm going to do now? I'm going back to the Eastern Cape. I'm going to tell that Tsenswalo who's struggling, who can't find a job. I want to tell him the president says you're okay. But for me, I took a call on the open line. Someone who says, Clement, I am Tsenswalo. Yes, I went through NSFAS. I own my own practice. I create jobs. But guess where my life is now? I have to outsource private security because government is failing to give me security. I take my kids to former Model C schools or private schools because the education system is a mess, right? I pay for water because government is failing to deliver proper water for me. I've got an inverter at home that costs me a lot of money because government. So sure, you have brought me up to this level, but actually I'm not enjoying this life. I'm not enjoying the money I make because I'm outsourcing services that you should have provided for me.
And I think to all of that speaks to what was lacking in the speech, an ability to talk to us about accounting for the 5 years of your term in office. We cannot deny, and I think everyone here has said it, how far the ANC has gotten us. But the question, if you use the narrative of a Tsenswalo, of whoever, is that what's the quality of their lives today?
Wow.
Where have you taken us today? Because in the 5 years that you've been in charge, you should have bettered Tsenswalo's opportunities. And those things are lacking in their living experience of a Tsenswalo today. And that's what failed for me is, again, you're giving us this elections manifesto, but you're not accounting. And in your attempt to account, you give us glimpses of progress, but again, there are no measurables. Yes, state capture, you've made inroads. The issue of, I think you spoke about
metric results capture, as well.
Education, everything,
but
health
without
sector,
context.
everything, there's no context.
You just go, we 80, what?
The
83%?
details are missing. Yeah.
But you're failing to also say that kids are not able
Black
to read.
industrialists, he literally gives us a teaser, but the teaser denies you the real picture of what Tsenswalo's life is like today.
And that's what makes it so selective, right? So there's no denying that there are Tsenswalos. Absolutely there are Tsenswalos, and government must be acknowledged for that. But it's the selective storytelling that I think has landed so badly in the country. I wrote a column yesterday saying that we were going to need a bucket of salt and rose-tinted glasses to get through the speech, which is exactly the case, and we knew this, right? The presidency put out a document a couple of days ago listing the successes of the sixth administration. And I said he is going to use that document as the basis for his speech. And that's exactly what they did. So they only chose a selective narrative and there was no accountability. And you use the example, right, of the president telling that story. He went off script and he told the story about the bus accident in Limpopo.
Oh my goodness.
And everyone started laughing. And he started laughing.
Let's repeat that to the listeners who may have missed it. There are people who were going to the ANC birthday celebrations this year in Jan. They were involved in an accident in a bus, so they were taken to hospital. The president said he visited them in hospital, and many of them had medical aids. And the president, apparently they wanted to be, those people were going to be moved to private hospitals, and they said, no, we want to stay in these public hospitals in Limpopo because we are so greatly taken care of.
And it's laughable, right? And the president laughed in response to everybody else laughing because we know it's not true.
I mean, really.
Can I point out that this was happening with Bushi Mape, freshly back from home from Thailand, where he was getting medical treatment? The irony of our story. Bushi Mape literally just got back just in time for SONA. I saw him yesterday and I was like... Northwest Premier, who is getting medical attention, not in the province, where the health facilities have absolutely pretty much collapsed. He himself, so the president makes comments like that, also laughs.
But then he doesn't tell us the full story.
We know the truth.
It's a selective narrative. narrative. It's not the full story. So he tells us a part of the story, which is the glossy, shiny, polished part of the story, but it's not the full context. And that's why we have a responsibility as journalists also to make sure that we report it and give commentary on this in a way that does give people the full picture.
Because while you're talking about the health thing, the NHI bill is what everybody's watching to see, do we get this over the line
Before elections.
Yes, and before the House rises, which is the end of next month.
Because he just needs to sign, right?
He went off script and he said, I just need to sign. And ANC Chief Whip Pemi Majadina jumped up from her chair and she made a theatrical, here's the pen. But just a day earlier, when his spokesperson was having a briefing in Parliament about what we could possibly expect, I asked the question about where are we at with the NHR and a whole host of bills that are on his desk that need to be assented. And Vincent Magwenya, his spokesperson, said, well, the president's taking legal advice. His legal team is looking at it. They want to make sure it's constitutionally sound, that all the processes have been followed, because, industry saying that the NCOP just rubber stamped it and did nothing and just took it the way it came from the end. So that was that narrative that he told us a day before the time. And yesterday the president said, I'm just ready to sign.
Because he plays to the gallery.
Because business is threatening also to
populist.
take
It's populist.
And business said, if you dare sign that without any changes, we're going to take that to court. I want to introduce something else now about the former president, Jacob Zuma, Tshidi, because I felt, and let me know if you read it the same way, there's a part in the speech where the president says, the strength of our constitutional democracy has been tested. Yes, we've lived through the global financial crisis, but the greatest damage was state capture. That's what he said. And he said, for a decade, there are certain top leaders who conspired with private individuals to take over and repurpose SOEs. And I felt that was the president, Cyril Ramaphosa, talking about the so-called 9 wasted years and talking directly to Zuma without necessarily mentioning him. Did you read it the same way?
I think you and many other people read it that same way. Can I just very quickly point out the odd moment where he speaks about state capture, the camera pans to the ANC caucus in Parliament, and then you're like, yes, where you've got the likes of Gwede Mantashe and Zizi Kodwa who are implicated. But anyway, yes, I do think
Vincent
so.
Smith. Who else? We can go
Vincent
on.
Smith's not there anymore.
He's not there now?
No, he's
No,
not.
he hasn't been
left
listed.
under the cloud of Busasa. Yes,
Busasa, yeah.
But what analysts were saying to me when I was preparing for SONA, all of them are saying President Cyril Ramaphosa can't just lay the blame on Jacob Zuma. He was the deputy president. He was there. He saw all of it. He was the leader of government business. So he should have been the one reporting to Jacob Zuma and saying, there's stuff going on here. You need to sort this out. And he doesn't do that. Or he didn't do that.
But I think where he's gotten away with it, because you're correct, I think the president has consistently failed to take responsibility of what was happening while he was second in command. He went to the State Capture Commission and really pretty much said nothing to
He said
Chief
if I had
Justice
spoken
Clement
out, they were going to get rid of me.
he was conflicted between leaving and staying quiet and biding his time to do something. He's now been given the position of head of state and it still pretty much has done nothing. So, yes, Mandy.
Last night, Ramaphosa spoke about state capture as if it had been perpetrated by aliens from outer space.
Like some aliens came here.
It's outrageous. And I think that's what infuriates people, right? Is the fact that he speaks about it in an us and them. So he alludes to Jacob Zuma and he says they, people in high positions. When he also is the same president who told the ANC that they were accused number 1 in the dock. And there are members of his own cabinet that he has not acted against and they were implicated in the state capture report. It is hypocritical.
It's ridiculous. I mean, look at Gwede, look at Zizi. For me, okay, I want to take it.
The conversation is still lagging as they move towards elections and are busy with candidate selection is also an indictment on the party and what it stands for and what he, as the head of the organization and the country, stands for. I also think that there's a thing where when Mandy says it almost sounds like something that came out of nowhere to attack them, I also feel like he speaks about it as if that it's over, as if also the beginning and end of corruption and impunity in South Africa was purely just that. It isn't. Praveen Gordhan, who's a minister in his cabinet, has said, I think he says state capture, we're either still susceptible to it and we can all kind of see it. So for me, to put corruption just under the label of state capture, as if that's the only time our governing party has been in the wrong, is part of the problem with the narrative as well. It is creating an us and them, and that's why you have Zuma being a representative of what has supposedly gone wrong, but actually The entire organization.
I always think about the report, the high-level review panel report on the State Security Agency. Remember, the president asked Sydney Mufamadi to go and investigate what
July
went wrong.
unrest,
Before the July unrest. So he said to Sydney, go look at the State Security Agency under the Zuma era and what went wrong. And Sydney Mufamadi and the other team members came back and say that was politicized. Literally, that agency was used to protect one man. And who did they point fingers at? David Mahlobo, Arthur Fraser. They gave the report to the president. What did he do? He appoints David Mahlobo to his cabinet.
You couldn't
He
even
appoints
explain why
Arthur
he
Fraser
did
as the
that.
commissioner.
Correctional
How?
Services Commissioner.
He couldn't even explain why. They asked him at state capture when he went to appear, why were these people still serving? And he said at the time, funny enough, that he was waiting for the report. I think there was a report into Mahlobo. There was a report that was pending at the time, and he kept saying he's waiting. That report came and went. Yesterday, David Mahlobo walked the red carpet. He still serves at the behest of the president.
So can
Didn't
we
the
talk
DA
about
even go to court on the Arthur Fraser appointment? I think the DA
They
went to
did.
court to get him to explain.
Yes, what happened? Because you
Yeah.
can, as much as, and we've seen this even during the Zuma era, as much as it's the president's prerogative to make certain appointments. The DA won a court case many years ago when the former president, would willy-nilly just fire Praveen because Praveen had a meeting with people in New York,
England.
and he said your engineering regime change. And,
Can I just say
and
to
the
you
court
very
said that the fact that you've got a prerogative to appoint doesn't mean you must just and you don't have to explain. It must still be a rational appointment.
Can I just say to you very quickly, all of those decisions, all those moves, pretending not to see what we all see, is part and parcel of putting NC's interests ahead of the country. And there, he's no different from former President Jacob Zuma. Just that former President Jacob Zuma would say it boldly and put his party first. Ramaphosa doesn't. However, he acts in a similar manner
But
all the time.
isn't this exactly what defines the presidency of Cyril Ramaphosa? And that's what we saw on display last night, was the fact that he does not take accountability, that he doesn't act swiftly, that everything is overly consultative, that he does see a different version of reality in South Africa than most people do. And that is because he puts party ahead of state.
I mean, a complete omission last night. There wasn't a single word about state-owned enterprises other than what was said about Eskom and Transnet. It was like SOEs didn't exist and wasn't the reason for state capture. What happened to the SOE council that's supposed to be established? I know there is a bill, but nothing's been said. What's happening with SAA? Nothing. Nothing was said about any progress made to fix SOEs. It's like SOEs don't exist, and like they're not 90% responsible for state capture and corruption.
I mean, we're still waiting for that deal with SAA to be completed. I've
That
never
that's
seen
all.
a due diligence process that takes so long. My goodness.
And SONA is supposed to set the stage for the budget, which is in 2 weeks' time. I don't know if this last night's speech set the stage for the budget. I mean, do you guys have any idea what we're going to spend the money on from last night's speech?
Probably there's more on Eskom, more on Transnet. Other than that, no.
No.
It's 10:31. 25 minutes before 11 o'clock, we are discussing the State of the Nation address last night with EWN Politics Editor Tshidi Madia, EWN Parliamentary reporter Lindsay Dentlinger, and the Midday Report host Mandy, Wiener. If you are watching this on Facebook and on other platforms, we're waving to you right now. Go check it out. We're streaming this conversation live on our Facebook platform. You can go to Prime Media Plus if you also want to watch it. I want to go to your calls now and some WhatsApp voice notes. You've heard what my guests have had to say, what we've had to say. Some of our analysis will continue the conversation, but I want to know what you think. What did you think of what the president said yesterday? And also, if you've got some questions, please bring them on. 011-883-0702. WhatsApp's on 0727021702.
Good morning, Clement. I'm listening to you, Mandy and Cyril, but I'm just saying, does the ANC allow a president to rule, making decisions by themselves? I don't think we have that system, and I think we have to acknowledge that we don't have that system. Yes, Thabo Mbeki tried, but I don't think that's how ANC operates. Every time he's saying Ramaphosa, there's no way he can make a decision that's against the ANC. It doesn't work like ANC. For me, when we criticize, we have to criticize ANC, not Ramaphosa. It doesn't work like that. That's not the system in the ANC to say you can go against the ANC. Thanks, bye.
It's a flawed system because the president once tried it when he said the ANC is accused number one in corruption, as you said, Mandy. And then what happened? There was an avalanche of attacks.
Yeah,
Andile Lungisa said,
From
within. Jacob Zuma wrote a long letter attacking the former president.
His view, because you can't attack the ANC from the ANC. But I want to make a different argument very quickly. Yes, the ANC will react if a leader of an ANC behaves in a particular manner. But you know what? The ANC has also had over history, including former President Jacob Zuma, decisive leadership. And that's what the ANC is failing now. Even people within the ANC who have said to President Ramaphosa, make a decision on things and move, wrong or right, at least have the ability to do that as you lead. And if you and whatever the response might be from within, be able to stand your ground on something. At the end of the day, though, if you are our head of state, as citizens, we look to your actions as the head of state. Yes, you're put there by the party. But even there, he holds the presidential position. So I do have an issue with us being told about the NEC. The NEC has a history of decisive leadership. For good or bad, it's had it. And so, yeah, sorry.
But it is this notion of the collective that the ANC has always been guided by, that decisions are made by the collective, that you serve at the behest of the president, but actually you are there as a deployee, and it's catered deployment, right? That's exactly what this notion is. And that's why I made the point yesterday also that what we saw last night was not necessarily the president of a country, but was the president of the ANC that gave us the State of the Nation address, because it is an election year. So that's why there is revisionist history. And I think that's why we're seeing this backlash against the SONA. And it's easy for opposition parties to climb into him here, because he gave us this marginalized, rose-tinted, optimistic view of the country because he was standing there as the president of the ANC, where if he was more self-reflective, if he was more acknowledging of the mistakes and flaws of his administration, then I think people would have been more discerning, more forgiving of what he was saying.
And I don't know, politically I feel like, because at the end of the day he's a politician. I mean, I said yesterday that for me, last night's speech was going to be about three things. One, this is an election year. He wants to use this platform to encourage people to vote for the ANC. But two, this is a year where we turn 30 years of our democracy. Hello, Tinswalo. So you want to show people what the ANC government has been able to do in 3 years. But lastly, which I think is more crucial, is this could be his last State of the Nation address. So he wants to be able to take stock and say to South Africans, look at what I've done. You don't want to be like Thabo Mbeki. Many years later, you're writing letters because you're trying to justify certain decisions you made, and you're trying to correct certain mistakes or perceptions people have about you. You want to start that work now and say, look at what I did. even when I came in and I found a mess.
But the answer can't be to deliver. In fact, what Mandy's pointing out is a delivery, really, of the January 8th statement that he delivered in Bombay, a different version of the same thing that was delivered to citizens.
And this is going to be his stump speech. So what we heard last night, we are going to hear again and again on ANC platforms running into the election.
Now in February, when they go to Durban for a manifesto launch. I do think that it is okay. It is important for them to highlight their gains. It's important to highlight what they've done. But I do think that last night called for a different kind of speech and a different kind of reflection and honesty and an ability to engage with the citizens. I think that that's lost on them. I don't think they wrote a terrible speech. I think he's got great speech writers. But I don't think that speech met the moment where it needed to. More so because, yes, you, as the president, are facing the most difficult election season yet. That's what you hear. And as you guys are pointing out, that could be his last speech. Well, I don't think so, but I do think that it's a possibility.
It's
exists.
a possibility.
It exists,
You never know. Let's take Tuso, who's calling us from Joburg. Tuso, good morning.
Good morning, Clement. Good morning to all guests. Guys, I want to say this. The issue of Kinswalo is the reality of majority of South Africans. I get disappointed when you guys in the studio critique it and start saying Kinswalo probably had no electricity last night. Guys, having load shedding is not the benchmark of the lifestyle in South Africa. We have got people who still don't have running water, kids still swept away by floods going to school. South Africa, it was declared the most unequal society by the World Bank. This has been happening for the past years and years. For you to come into the studio and just try to push aside the issue of Kinswalo, I call it, you are saying it from the privilege and luxury of Ivory Tower analysis. Why I'm saying so? That's the reality on the ground. People are suffering, and ordinary black children desires in their lives is going unresolved. The second thing I want to say is the absence of EFF from the parliament. It decampaigned them because it showed that there is progress in parliament without the EFF. So life goes on. So guys, let's critically look at this. Yes, ANC has had its flops, but if we decide to ignore what the ANC government has done, we are being denialist. The reality of the issue is ANC is facing resistance from the private sector. They want to resist the NHI because medical schemes, they are racketeering, they are pyramid schemes. No one audits them. They are a lot to themselves. The banks, they are a lot to themselves. And the untouchables. All those things are going unspoken about. And people have got all the audacity to attack the government.
Tuso.
Guys, it doesn't work like that.
Tuso?
Yes.
Did you listen to this conversation from the beginning?
Yeah, I did. I'm with you guys. I'm you.
I'm confused.
I tend to be corrected from what I said.
Yes. Let me correct you.
Yes.
Nobody in the studio said the ANC did nothing. So that's factually incorrect.
But you are downplaying the issue of Kinswalo. Let's agree.
Hold on.
Let's agree.
No, hold on. Remember, I gave you a chance to speak. You know how we engage on this show.
Yes, I know.
Yes.
Thank you. Yes.
I'm saying, one, you are wrong because we've taken a lot of time trying to explain. Mandy, Tshidi, Lindsay, all of us said the reality of it in Kinswalo's life having changed is real. And we've been stressing that you cannot deny that. There are lives that have been changed by this democratic government. We've been stressing that, but we're also saying that's not
amplifying it enough.
Okay, what is amplifying it? Do you want us to bring in vuvuzelas in studio while we say it? Blow a vuvuzela?
No, Clement, no.
Okay. All right. Okay, it's fine.
You want to hear critiquing everything.
Okay,
yes.
Cool. All right, I'll leave it there. I'll leave it there. Thank you so much for calling us in Joburg. Mvuzele, in Pretoria, what are your thoughts?
Hi, Clement. Hello?
Yes, I'm listening, Mvuzele. We're listening. Go ahead, man.
Okay, I'm glad you have all your political editors and reporters there. I'm saying we're going to have a problem, Clement, if we are doing what we've been doing the last 30 years.
Uh-huh.
If we are not serious and if we are genuine about focusing on the democracy, we must not allow ourselves to focus on the ANC. Because if we focus on the ANC, you're going to have callers just like this one who want to defend the ANC, instead of us focusing on the constitution to say if there is a weaknesses, I keep repeating this. The media is only pushing the narrative which is political. But why don't you focus on the system as a whole to say if the constitution is being used by the ANC to do whatever is doing, which means we have a weak democratic system. Instead, what we do, the media only focuses on politicians. They ignore people who are pushing the narrative to say we must focus on the constitution because we have a serious problem with this constitution. And I keep saying this, and the media is ignoring the organization, political. We have said we are not going to focus on going to election. We're going to focus on our democratic system. But the media is not interested in that.
Yeah,
instead, we are creating this.
Yeah.
You are creating this conflict of this is a political conflict because ANC is defending the opposition parties are taking the ANC. Where are we going to end with this?
Yeah, Mzuvele.
So yes.
Yeah, Mzuvele. The constitution is not self-executing. The constitution is a living document. Who gives life to the constitution? It's the politicians that you and I appoint to get into government. So you cannot talk about the constitution and its deliverables without talking about the people who inhabit the office that gives life to the constitution. This government you have is the one that implements, that gives life to the constitution. So you can't talk about the constitution as a document on its own without talking about politicians and what they work with in relation to implementing that constitution.
As I'm saying, Clement, to you, we're going to have a problem because when I look at the state capture, I'm looking at the constitution, what it say about accountability. Why there's no accountability if the constitution, because constitution is the foundation of our democracy. If we have a weak democracy, we'll have a weak democratic system if we have a weak constitution. That is my point.
Yeah, that's your point. Thank you so much, Zuvele, for your call. Let's take some WhatsApp voice notes.
Good day, Clement. Please ask your guest, do they think that it was a smart strategy by the president to try to celebrate 30 years of the ANC governance, whereas he was the same president who used to brand the Zuma tenure as the 9 wasted years? And also, the 30 years does include the state capture of Jacob Zuma. Thanks, David.
Hi, good morning, Clement. Yeah, I hear you guys. You said Cyril was a deputy. Yes, he was a deputy, and then he was supposed to see what Zuma is doing. But who was in charge? It was Zuma. There was this thing that he wanted to fire him. So what can you do if you got such a boss? Yeah, it is very difficult. I think he was a deputy under a very difficult situation. Yeah, it's Clement in Mamelodi. Thank you. Bye.
Clement, you see, those ladies that you have there in studio, I have lots of respect for them. Those, for me, are proper analysts. They are analyzing the state of the nation so well, very objective. Nothing wishy-washy. Lots of respect for those three ladies. It's Tebogo from Pretoria. Thank you.
We love you, Tebogo. Thank you.
Come on, Abel, let's clap for them.
We are not wishy-washy. We love Tebogo.
We mustn't clap for a fish that's swimming, hey? Like the ANC last night.
All right, it's now 11 minutes before 11 o'clock. Before 11 o'clock, let's wrap up with some of your WhatsApp voice notes.
Hi, Clement. The situation with this whole saga is Cyril Ramaphosa is a weakest link. He's not brave like Zuma. So it's hard for him to make decision. He doesn't make decision. But I tell you, it was so easy for Zuma, as corrupt as he was, to stand up, wake up the following day early in the morning and say, I'm recalling blah, 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 without any consultation. But this man, he can see people corrupting the system, corrupting the country, corrupting whatever that left. But he says the law needs to take its course. He's fold his arms. Mandy, Wiener is right. Cyril Ramaphosa, he said to people of this country, he's there to save ANC. He's not there for the country. He's there to revive ANC. People still want to blame the man. He told us straight. He is there to save ANC. Forget about the country. Thank you.
Good morning, Clement. I think for the very reason that this could, and I mean could, be his last speech as the president of the country, he really owed us more than what he gave us. He gave us the pretty little things, you know. He gave us what he thought we wanted to hear. Sure, he's had wins, but we really deserved to hear a lot more, especially when you go back to the previous State of the Nation address. Is it not that we now must give feedback as to what has happened since the last State of the Nation address? Where are we as a nation? What are we planning to do? Like Tshidi said, the budget speech is coming up. We don't know how the money is going to be spent. We don't know where the money is going. Anyway, I really think he really owed us more than what he gave us. But on the upside, every South African citizen probably knows of the name Tinzalo. Cheers.
Yeah, find Tinzalo. I did say yesterday what would have been dope is if government had actually found a Tinzalo. Imagine
so
she's
there's
there with her
there's a
two
lot
kids.
of people on social media today saying I am Tinzalo and telling their
But it would have been cool
stories.
for the president to say, in fact, there's a Tinzalo here who's in here. Stand up Tinzalo. Tinzalo
If you had
there
multiple
with her two
Tinzwalos,
kids.
actually,
Or
because
multiple
there's so many.
Tinzwalos, because there are
So
many
there's a
of them.
different way they could have delivered this, but I still go back to this is Tandy 2.0.
Tandy 2.0.
And I can't get past that.
Okay, so just lastly then, Lindsay, what do you think for you worked? What do you think for you didn't work with the SONA?
Well, I think it was always going to be the expectation. I think it was always
she
going.
found her button.
I did find my
Yay.
button. Sorry, I'm not in the studio too often. Forgive me. I think, and it was the expectation, it's 30 years of democracy. It's 30 years of a democratic parliament, and that had to be acknowledged. It's massive. Even if some of our callers don't think we have a great constitution, much of the world thinks we have one of the best constitutions, and that had to be celebrated. It's also a celebration of 30 years of democracy. But the next 30 years, I feel he never left us with a vision. Yes, we're laughing about, or I'm laughing about the bullet trains and the smart city that he promised that didn't come, but at least he made us promises in this new dawn. We had something to look forward to. He gave us a little bit of hope. Things are going to turn around, all the bad stuff. For me anyways, he gave us nothing. As I said, if anything, I felt like a hypocrite last night to write a story to tell South Africans this morning when they woke up that load shedding's a thing of the past, and then, I myself woke up with no electricity, and it makes some of us who report feel like hypocrites because but he never gave me any hope. Never mind setting the stage for how we're going to spend the little money that we have in 2 weeks' time. What's happening? What are we looking forward to for the next 30 years? And that for me was lacking.
And for you, what worked, what didn't work?
So I think the nostalgia worked. I think speaking about that, the democracy and voting and how we were voting for our dreams, I think that was very evocative. I do think the story of Tintswalo worked because we're talking about it. So as a narrative device, and I often refer to the quote from Chimamanda Adichie, the Nigerian author, who says, "The danger of a single story is not that it's not true, but that it becomes the only story that we tell."
Love that.
And I always say that we cannot tell a single story of South Africa. That single story of everything is broken, nothing works, all the police are corrupt, all the prosecutors don't do their jobs properly, because there are Tintswalos. But there are many other narratives to tell in the story as well. And we have a responsibility as the media, and the public has the responsibility to be discerning, to acknowledge the fact that there are multiple stories. There are Tintswalos. There are people who are not Tintswalo. And I think that's what the president failed to do last night. So there were things that worked, but you can see how it didn't either.
And you?
You're looking for
what worked, what didn't work?
What worked, what didn't work. I think it's important to reflect on how we got here, where we come from. I think he speaks a lot about the spirit of resilience. I like that South Africans are constantly reminded of who you are, what your power is as a nation. But I think he doesn't meet it where he ought to meet that moment and what he's saying. And that for me falls flat in... I don't think I want to accuse him of not taking his job seriously enough, but failing to forget why you said you want to serve a nation, that you are accountable to them, that when we look to you, we're looking for answers as to the commitments you made when you said to Mamina, when you said send me. You're not responding now 5 years after the fact, or even after, because that was 2018, even after the fact, you're not responding to me now at the end of your term when you ask for a mandate as somebody who asked to be sent. You are cheating me out of full answers to what happened.
All right, guys, thank you so much for making time. I know all of you, when I asked you to come in this morning early, all of you protested first. And you said, we're knocking off late and we must come early in the morning. I appreciate it. This was an amazing conversation. Tshidi, Mandy, and Lindsay, thank you. Will you be staying for our conversation on celibacy?
Lindsay and I have thoughts on that. So we've been sharing.
It's a minute.
Young people, it's not quite landing here.
It's a minute before 11.